Thank you everybody for being here again for possibly episode 318. Thank you to all of our partners out there. Russell Hill, Fixed Ops Marketing, thank you, sir. Parts Edge, Kaylee Filio, Automotive Warranty Network Inc., Target Automotive, and UVI. Thank you to all of them. I'll give the reminder for We Are on Thursday at 2 p.m. It is a listener's choice this week. So Jamie Alexander and Stephanie Wedgeworth hosting and looking to just talk about whatever anybody wants to bring into the group to talk about
And
it.
this is when
Thursday, 2 p.m.
we'll see what's come up since I was on there, and we talked about all the things we did. There's some really talented women on there.
Yes, that is for sure. All right, so this week, up in my top left corner, Joe Clementi, hashtag Coach Joe, here with another impactful evening for you all. And so, Joe, the show is yours, my friend.
All right. Thanks, Dave. I just got out of hair and makeup, right? So I'm ready
You're
to
good,
go.
man.
I look good, right? I'm ready. Got hair and makeup's done. Normally, before these meetings, I overthink. I prepare. I over strategize. And then I quietly panic for about 20 minutes beforehand. So tonight I said to myself, I'm going to skip the panic and I'm just going to triple check my notes like a completely normal person might. So that's the goal. Just give a really good foundational product to all of you. Let me share my screen. And Dave, can you just let me know when we're good?
You're good, sir.
Awesome. So if you're new, here's how we do this. We use science-backed strategies to deliver ideas, concepts that stick. We always add practical applications that you can take with you right away. So I'm going to encourage you to take some notes. If we have time to chat throughout the presentation, please do. But open-minded approach to this is really where the resonation will come in. Once you start to see how things unfold, you really get a good grasp of where we're going with this, minimizing the noise. One application, one applied approach can change an entire outcome. So that's what I'm hoping you get, is just one thing. I'm going to ask for your attention for 30 minutes, but it's going to be fun. It's going to be insightful. And I tweaked it just a little bit from a science perspective so that we try to get the most out of it. So let's start with my objectives, because I always want to make sure I'm clear about what we want to build. So we're going to give you some tools around the noise model. We're going to give you some application that you can apply the potent framework to. It's a built scientific framework so that you have intention. We're going to give you two tools that are practical. I actually have an application here, and Dave, he and I talked about maybe sharing the playbook with those of you that want it afterwards. The playbook is pretty robust. And then lastly, we ask you to commit to just one more change that creates more signal and less noise. When we do this, we actually achieve more by applying what we've learned. So before we begin, I want to share a couple other things with you. One is my goals, what we want you to know, what we want you to feel, and what we want you to do. So I think it's really important that if we're going to host one of these, whether we have 3 people on or 10, I want you to understand where the deeply rooted connection to providing this kind of content is around. It's around developing you around scientific strategies that are easier to comprehend. So first, I want to take you on a journey, and I want you to envision this for me, if you will. You're driving down a long stretch of road. The sun's rising in front of you. You got miles to go. Coffee maybe in your center console. Maybe it's an energy drink. Your GPS is cutting in and out. Maybe your song or your music playlist is cutting in and out. Every red light, you're answering emails on your cell phone. You're returning text at the stoplights. You're lined up with calls back to back to back as you're making this drive. You're moving, but you're not really seeing anything. Then it happens. You miss a turn. Just one, not a dramatic one, but it would have saved you 20 or 30 minutes to avoid all the construction you're about to hit. You didn't miss it because you weren't paying attention. You missed it because there was too much noise in your head, in your inbox, in your car. You were busy, you were engaged, you were responsive, but the one thing that mattered, the turn, slipped right past you. So I want to ask you, does that sound familiar? Probably does to most of you.
Absolutely happens to me all the time.
Right. Maybe it's not a highway. Maybe it's a typical day in the office. Maybe you're working on something that's productive, or you're in a meeting or metrics or motion, but nothing important really moves. So that's what today is about. Not time management, not a hustle, signal. I want you to hear that framework, signal, because potential doesn't get lost. It gets buried under the notifications, under obligations, even under ego. So today we're going to peel that back a little bit. And I want you to write this down, if you will, for me. Where am I missing the turn? We're going to come back to it later, but for now, just hold that question in your head as we dig a little bit further into the noise. So let's be honest. Your days are just packed. You got emails, messages, meetings, text, people pulling at you from every direction, right? You got all these noise elements imparting into your vision. But here's a question. How much of it is actually moving the needle? Has anyone else had this? I did a lot today, Russ. I actually did a lot of crap today, but I don't know what actually got done. Anybody else experienced that besides me? I'm sure many of you have, right? And that's why I asked the question, because it's not inefficiency, it's noise. And noise isn't just about sound. It's anything that competes for your focus, but doesn't help you grow. Here's the key. In today's workspace, noise is our default setting. So let's talk about what's really happening to your brain when it's overloaded, because you know me, if you've attended these, I always back it with science. So I'm going to talk about the cognitive load theory. The science says when you're juggling too many inputs, your working memory cannot process new information. So nothing sticks. You're present, but you're not productive. So often when I give this presentation or we're doing a webinar remotely and I'm teaching a class, I'll ask someone to stop and say, what was the last point about? Here's why I do that. Because when we are juggling too many things, especially when you're remote, the input cannot allow itself to stick. The information won't be retained because you're present but not productive. Let's go a little bit deeper. There's something called the decision fatigue. Every decision, what to respond to, who to call back, what to prioritize, they all chip away at your ability to think clearly. And by 3 o'clock, even the small decisions feel like mountains. So I'm going to ask.
It's at 1 o'clock. Trust me.
It's at 1. Okay.
Yeah.
For you, it's at 1. Says anybody else, and maybe you all experience this as well. At the end of the day, you come home, maybe you're at home, your family's together, maybe it's your significant other, and they say, hey, what do you want for dinner? What do you want to do? How was your day? What was it? And you're done with the decision making, right? Your brain I see Steve smiling in the background. It's true, right? Your brain is like, okay, I got to shut down, right? Because all these things are these small decisions, they pile on. The last one is a very important research, and I studied this a lot. It's research by, if you want to look it up, it's by Dr. Anna Lemke. She is a Stanford psychologist. She talks about the dopamine loops. And in those loops, she explains it this way, and I summarized it as a as a snapshot. So answering emails, checking Teams chat, checking your cell phones, replying fast because it feels productive, your brain gets that quick dopamine shot. Here's what the science said. It's junk food for your attention span. Think about that just for a minute. It's like relying on junk food for your brain. See, we as humans weren't designed to handle constant streams of text messages, pings, tasks, pull requests, but we've kind of normalized that distraction and we trained ourselves to respond instead of actually leading. So here's the key, right? When everything feels urgent, nothing feels important anymore. And as I visit stores, this is the one most common thing that I see all the time. When it feels urgent, nothing feels important. So I'm going to challenge you for a second. What's one thing that constantly hijacks your focus during the day?
Emails.
Email.
My GM.
Yep, a person can absolutely be a distractor.
Staff meetings all day, all day.
Staff meetings, yep. Decision-making process, right? All these things could be a person, could be a behavior, could be a habit, could be a tool. So I'm going to give you some tools that will actually help you, but I got to put it in some sort of framework. So I segmented this into the static, and the static is noise. The first step is understanding that what noise sounds like. So let's talk about neglected boundaries. It's one of those things where you might say, hey, sure, no problem, Kyle, I'll jump on that. Stephen, no problem, I'll handle that. In the middle of trying to do something else, we have these boundaries that get neglected. We have overstimulated inputs, meaning we have too many things happening at one time that we never focus on the one thing. Then there's this internal insecurity. Hey, I better respond to Russell really quickly because if I don't, he'll think I'm not on it.
You're
He'll
damn
think
right.
I'm not
That's
engaged, right?
Yeah.
That's the science. And sometimes we forget that that internal security is actually a detractor because we say, in theory, and we all have experienced this, I'll multitask.
Yeah, that's crap, isn't it?
Right. And the science behind multitasking, I could go on for days, but here's the nutshell. It's ineffective. One thing or the other suffers.
That's right.
Let's talk about scarcity thinking. Maybe Kyle, maybe you experience this, maybe Steve does, maybe Robert does, but I know in a lot of environments where a fixed operations director or service manager will say, I can't say no, we may not get another chance. I can't say no to my boss. And so we lose focus on the one thing and we're distracted by the noise. Lastly is the ego-driven aspect. You know what? If I hit this number, they're going to finally see me. They're going to recognize me. So all I got to do is just hit this number. And that egocentric mentality really drains our ability. So I want to take a couple of seconds, if you'll allow me, and just break it down a little bit further. The neglected boundaries are, you say yes when you don't have space. Russell said before the meeting started, this is the first time I actually shut down on vacation. Again, the science proves that time away, closing off that portion of your life, is the most effective and long-standing ability to have two separate yet connected lives. Maybe you're answering texts during dinner time. I experienced this when I joined meetings, and maybe some of you do the same. You let a short meeting balloon into a strategy session that has no plan. It just goes on and on and on without a plan. Let's talk about overstimulated inputs. You know, I'm going to tell you this story because it's relevant. but I visited a dealer last week, and I won't say who, and I sat with a fixed ops director. And you guys, once I start telling this, you're going to go, oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. So I sat at his desk. By the way, had to work to get in the office. He's got 3 monitors, 14 browser tabs open, 3 devices nearby. Dave, I can see you laughing. A red light blinking on his desk, stacks of paper, ROs on his desk, open parts boxes, both on the desk and on the floor, and a Teams chat running in the background that hadn't stopped. Chaos keeping him from the one thing. By the way, what do you think the outcome of that visit was? Well, let me share the secret. I'm busy. I'm busy. Think about that just for a second. All of you can resonate with this because there's a difference from being busy, busyness, and distraction. And if you want to reference noise, you guys all visualized that office, didn't you? And you weren't even there with me, but you visualized that office.
I sat in that office for decades.
Yeah.
I won't work in that office anymore.
Yeah.
Right. And the reality is, and again, you already know this answer, so I'm going to ask it. Was he happy?
No.
Good answer. Let's talk about the internal insecurity. This one hits a little deeper for some of us. Maybe you, maybe it's me. But it's the quiet fear of saying to myself, you're not good enough. You're not going to be good enough. So you kind of overcompensate. You over-respond. You try to prove your value in noise instead of results. What I learned early on from doing these webinars, that I tried to be more show on the show side and less on the content-driven side, because there was this lack of connection to what is really matters. And today, what we're talking about, what really matters is the noise. And I'm going to give you some practical skills that will actually help you, but you got to be willing to try them. Next is the scarcity thinking. You know, you hold on to every opportunity, every project, every task, because you know what? What if the next one doesn't come? What if Russell doesn't give me another big project? What if Steven doesn't trust me with this one? Have you ever been redirected by a supervisor, perhaps someone else, to handle a project that has their priority, but redirects you from yours? I bet you have. And the last one is the ego. You're not chasing what matters to you. You're chasing what gets recognized. The ironic thing behind that is the science is saying what matters to you is not the outcome, but you're chasing something to get recognized. And I use this analogy when I teach this. The applause, it's fast, it's loud, but it fades much quicker. And then suddenly that calendar is so full that your purpose becomes empty. I hope that resonates with you, because for many leaders, this is what happens. Their calendar gets full, but their purpose empties.
It's interesting, the primary drivers in most major corporations are internal insecurity and ego-driven goals.
Amazing. It's true, right?
Every
Well
time,
said.
every time.
I was teaching this class, and one of the students said to me, does that mean we're dysfunctional? And I said, no, you're not broken. You're operating in a noisy system. So how do we teach the methods to get out of that noisy system so that you are more focused on the one thing? No shame, just quiet awareness. And that's really what we're talking about when we think about this in its context. So now that we've diagnosed the problem, just like Kyle would, or Steve or Robert would, like we diagnosed the problem, we got to name the noise. Now we need to talk about what to build instead. Because I really believe that clarity doesn't just show up, it's a construct. So I created a framework that we refer to as potent, and I'll go through that with you. We're going to shift because we have to provide some application to this process. And when you think about clarity, it's more than a mindset. It's this structure. It's something you build upon. So let me just lay it out really quickly, and then I'll go a little bit more in depth. So it is prioritize, optimize, tidy, evaluate, navigate, and track. That's the context around potent. This is a framework for how to build a step-by-step process to allow you to get out of the noise. First one is prioritize with purpose. So I'm going to provide you with a 3x3 grid in just a minute, but I want to explain what it means. The context is 3 priorities, 3 daily non-negotiables. That's it. The rest, you either triage it or you table it. Now, for many leaders, especially in the automotive world, they always say, well, how do I do that? And I'll teach that a little bit later because it is about prioritization. We have a much, and Robert's well aware of this, but some of my other team members are, we have a much more robust daily plan that allows you to stay focused on the task ahead. So that's the P, prioritize with purpose. Optimize. So before you say yes to the next thing or anything else, ask yourself, is this helping us achieve the objective or just keeping me busy? So when I was sat with that FOD, I asked this question to him. He said, you know what, Joe, it's keeping me busy. It's keeping me busy, but we're not achieving our objective. And could he be in the drive? Could he be leading the service drive? Could he be touching the technicians? Could he be connecting with clients? Could he be following up with the parts orders? Nope. No time for that. Why? He's busy. The one thing, get lost.
In most cases, he's busy doing other people's jobs.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what happens. People come and ask you stuff that's their job, and you jump in to help them. And by the end of the day, you've done everybody else's job and you haven't done your own.
Yeah, 100% on point. This
busy does not mean productive.
Right. Productivity is a very insightful word because productivity from one perspective could mean one thing, and productivity from another perspective could just mean I'm busy. And I asked at the end of the day, how do you feel? What do you mean? I said, well, how do you feel at the end of your day? Have you accomplished? I don't know. What's driving that person to come to work every day is the paycheck. He's disconnected from the purpose and distracted by the noise. But I tried to talk him into this class, by the way, but unfortunately he didn't make it.
He was busy.
He was busy.
You were too busy to listen.
Yeah. So when you tidy up your space, the space around you mirrors the clarity within you. That's one thing that the science really goes into more depth on, and I didn't want to belabor the point, but here's what the science says in a nutshell. Your immediate space dictates or mirrors the clarity within. So for that person, because their office was as I described it, I'm going to try to say this the nice way. Everything else was a mess. Yes. I mean, you feel where I'm going with that? Everything else was a mess. And that has a lot to do with the space around you. So, I try to teach the visual cues that keep the main thing at the front and center. So for many of us, he might walk by that parts boxes that's been, I would guess, because I looked in one of them covered in dust. My guess, it's been sitting on that desk for months, right? And so for that person, he's become blind to it. He doesn't see it anymore. So just make sure that you tidy up a little bit and evaluate, right? This self-awareness is so important. I refer to it as the internal dashboard. Look, we talk about dashboards all the time. Start tracking your own self-evaluation. How are you aware today? What drives your energy? What drains your energy? And I'm going to share with you one of the trackers in just a minute that will actually teach you the tools that help you do this. For many, they won't do the work because it's hard. When you do this, the science shows that you'll actually be able to make a change even faster than you know. Navigate. So routines definitely protect your energy. If you're rebuilding the same wheel every day, your signal gets buried in repetition. And for him, his signal was getting lost. And again, I could tell this story hundreds of times going into environments where there is this reciprocal structure of we're busy, we're fast, and all this noise is coming in to distract them. Track. So I laid this out in the format. Some of the people that know me well, I do this every Friday. I take 15 minutes, and it's a ritual every Friday morning. What's worked, what didn't, what's next? And for me, it's the simplest way to stay calibrated. What we do even more in depth, and I will try to explain this for this conversation, is we have a workbook, and that workbook is designed to set up your mindset right, and you score yourself on the 3 activities, the 3 priorities, and your 3 meetings. And when you do this 3 by 3 by 3, you actually find that you're more effective throughout the day. And when you don't set your mindset right, you find out at the end of the day, you scored yourself a 5 out of a 10 because you lacked the attention, you lacked the discipline. And more times than that, that's when things kind of fall apart. So I would ask you guys, now that we're getting really close towards the end and giving you some tools, is there anything that resonates maybe with you personally?
All of it.
Okay.
I would definitely say, Joe, I set way too many priorities in a week. I have way too high an expectation of what I'm going to actually accomplish.
Yeah.
I tell you, I tried about 9 months ago to a year ago, time blocking from 11:15 to 12:30. Okay, that was my time.
Yep. It works, doesn't it?
No, it doesn't, because I let it not work.
Oh, that's the difference.
Yeah, no, people schedule meetings and then they call me and say, "Well, I can't schedule that time. There's something else going on." I said, "Well, let me open it up for you." Okay, I can do that.
Yeah. So that's
And now it's like it's my fault. Just like responding to emails and text messages and phone calls, I've trained people that's what I do, and I've pulled back on some of that. And it's like, what's up with Russell? What's wrong with you, man? I didn't hear from you.
yeah.
Because I trained them that I respond right away. And I'm so overloaded now. I can't. I'm missing it. I mean, it has to be on my calendar. I just recommitted to going back to time blocking. I'm going to have a meeting with my business partner. There's 3 meetings during the week that take place with various team members with different departments that we have, and we're going to have to reshuffle the deck, and we're going to have to find another time because I need that time.
So one of the things I will usually recommend in those distractions is, how are you color coding it on your calendar? There's a reason for that from a psychological perspective. So if you're calendarizing your time blocking for you, make it red. Red means I cannot be interrupted in this time frame, and I won't allow myself to be interrupted for this time frame. There's always going to be an urgency. There's always going to be, we got to do it today. And the reality is, typically, that could have waited an hour and it would have worked. So just a tip there. I don't know if it helps you, but it does work when you calendarize and put it in a separate code. So let's make it real now. I call this the practical application side, and I write about it all the time and I teach it all the time. How do we make it real? How do we take the potent methodology and apply it immediately, especially when things get noisy? So we introduced the structure, we named the noise, and I want to give you 2 tools that I've used with my team members with executives, with managers, with frontline people, and they work because they're really simple. They're not fancy at all. They're frictionless. Because in this world or this environment, the best system is the one that you're going to use. I hope you agree with that. So here's the 3x3 focus grid. And I'll cover this in 5 or 10 seconds here. There's a more elaborate section in the playbook. But you choose 3 priorities. These are the big levers, excuse me. Each day you pick 3 actions and 3 meetings. All of those are intentional that support your objective. That's it. It's not about saying no to everything else, but it's making space for what moves the needle. When you get to this point and you actually literally follow this outline that I have here, you'll be amazed at what you're able to discover. It keeps your signal strong no matter how loud the day gets. Really important. Number 2, I call it the signal tracker. It's a simple way that creates awareness, not judgment, just awareness. What you're going to do is you're going to create 2 columns, what drained me and what drove me. Here's your challenge for everybody. Track this every day for 1 week. Just jot a moment or a pattern. It takes less than 2 minutes. I've done this hundreds of times. I don't know if Robert's on it, but he's done this as well because I've challenged him with it. It takes less than 2 minutes, but here's the science. You're going to recognize patterns and they're going to be really loud. You're going to start to notice certain people, certain times of day, certain types of work. They either fuel your potential or they drain it. That's your opportunity, your signal. You got to learn to hear it. So this is kind of what it looks like. Again, there's a more elaborate design, but this is this simple. It's not hard. The hard part is you as a person tracking it every day, just for a week. I'd be interested next week if someone comes on and says, hey, I tried this and this is what I noticed. Generally, what I'll do is I'll revisit with that person and then fill out what drains you and what drives you. I noticed I got a typo, so I'll apologize for that in advance. But that's the key point, right? What drains you and what drove you. Because when you understand the pattern, the science says that the pattern itself will speak louder to you than any words can apply. So I asked you earlier, and we'll come full circle. I asked you to write this down. Remember that drive we were going on, the missed turn? The moment we were doing everything, moving, managing, responding, but we still missed the turn? It wasn't just a story. It's a mirror. And the truth is, most of us aren't failing because we're lazy. We're not falling short because we lack skill. We're just buried under the noise, under obligation, under stories that we don't choose, and the pressure that we don't question. One of the tasks I always teach, especially service managers, is, hey, Kyle, I understand the task at hand. What's the level of urgency? Is this something you need today, tomorrow, or later in the week? Why do I teach that skill? Because it's really important to prioritize the level of urgency. Otherwise, it's just one more noise taking you away from the one thing. And your job, especially as a leader, is to listen to the signal, even when the noise is really loud. So over the next 7 days, you got two pieces of homework. Really simple. Eliminate one source of noise. Something you know is clutter, maybe a task, a habit, a behavior, that voice in your head that doesn't really serve you. Eliminate just one piece of noise. Here's the second piece of homework. replace it with an intentional signal. So what's an intentional signal? A new focus, a priority that you've been neglecting, a conversation that you know needs to happen, but you've been putting it off, or maybe a new habit. And I usually ask students right about now, I'll say, write this down. Noise I'm cutting this week is blank.
My GM. Got it.
Signal I'm choosing instead is blank. And the reason I ask that is because, Kyle, to your point, you know, we tend to lack the specificity or the background behind it. And when we apply the science, it's amazing at how fast we can really change. That's your homework. Cut one more sign of noise. What signal have you been too busy to hear? For many of us, it's an individual. For many of us, it's a time of day. For many of us, it's an external distraction, like 3 devices sitting on his desk, 3 monitors, and a flashing red light on his desktop phone.
What are the 3 devices, though? I'm confused on the 3 devices.
Yeah, me too. So he had a tablet, he had his cell phone, and he had a second tablet.
Holy hell.
What they were all for? They didn't have the same thing? I have no idea. But that's a great question. So I believe this, you don't need more time, you need fewer distractions, because the real truth is the next turn in your leadership journey is already visible, but you just need to be quiet enough to hear it. And many times these distractions are what stop us from achieving our real potential. So I'm going to stop sharing because that's pretty much it. Hopefully my focus on reviewing my notes repeatedly for 20 or 30 minutes delivered a product for you guys.
Coach, that was freaking phenomenal.
Always.
It really was.
Can I ask a question, Coach?
Absolutely.
So I read a lot of you and what you put out. I hear you a lot. Obviously, you've been on FOM a bunch of times. And is it possible that once you train yourself through these things that we're hearing that you bring to us, like, does it just happen without us knowing that it's happening? Because, like, as you're going through these things, I feel like, no, I haven't written it down and now I want to, but is it possible that we have already recognized these things as we've spent this time together and it's just happening?
Yeah, so I'll answer it as best I can. For many people, it's the application process, the actual applying with some level of consistency. As I said, many won't do the homework, right? And then as you gradually begin to do these certain aspects or tasks, you realize day later, weeks later, Gavin can probably tap in on this, but you realize days and weeks later, oh, that's what it meant. That's the connection. Here's where the dotted line meets and it resonates. Sometimes it takes a little longer. And what I usually recommend for people, and especially when we do a thorough learning and development, it's the follow-up that matters the most. Because if we don't do the work, then it doesn't matter. Hopefully that answered your question specifically.
No, it does. It absolutely does. And I think, I know a lot of the people that are on. Oops, somebody was coming through. I know a lot of the people that are on here I talk to almost daily. And no matter what part of the business we're all in, it's invaluable to learn these things that we're learning from each other. But Coach, you amaze me every time I see you.
Thanks, man. I really appreciate it. Thank you for your generosity.
I just wanted to say one thing about the time blocking. Sometimes when people can't get to you, because I time block and have for years, and what's really pretty cool, what comes out of that sometimes is the person that's coming to ask you a question or how do I do this? And then someone else mentioned you end up doing their job. So the fact that they can't get to you forces them, not all of them, but to figure it out themselves.
Yeah.
And oftentimes when you see they're like kind of looking for you, you go back and you say, okay, I'm finished now. Was there something you needed? I can't tell you how many times I've heard, oh, I figured it out.
Yeah, that's a really great point, Leslie. Thank you.
Yes, it is.
It's a great
Yeah.
point.
Enabling codependent behavior there, right?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Well, there's a more impactful way even to do it, and that's the Socratic method that we've talked about here before, because empowering that person by asking a ton of questions allows them to find their own solution they already knew. And we
Right.
talked about on one of our meetings in the past, and one of my favorite phrases when someone says, I don't know, I always ask,
Oh,
if
I
you
got
did know, if you did know, what would the answer be?
yeah. And
Why?
then,
Because they already know the answer. They're just asking for affirmation. I'll tell you a true story. I was actually meeting today with one of my leaders, and she said to me, well, how do I do this if this happens? Should I do this? And what happens if, and I said, let me ask you a question. What do you think is the best direction from here?
yeah.
You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to set up the meeting first. I'm going to understand the numbers, and then I'll go into how we can solve the problem. I said, that sounds like a great strategy. She's empowered to make her own decisions. Sometimes they need that affirmation. So when you time block, to Leslie's point, if you're unavailable, they got to figure it out.
Yep.
It's not 9:03, kids. We gotta get this
Bedtime.
Bedtime.
Bedtime. Yeah, right.
All right.
Thank you, everybody.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you.
This was my first time interacting with Joe. Fantastic.
I know,
Appreciate
right,
it.
Steve? Yeah.
Appreciate it very much.
Thank you, sir.
Awesome.
So,
As always.
in closing, I have to ask if is this something that if I arranged a meeting with my team, that you would be open to doing this very one that you just did?
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you. Great seeing everybody tonight. Thank you very much.
Welcome back, Russell Hill. Missed you.
Yeah, I
you.
miss you guys too.
Thank you, everybody, for joining.
being
I
here,
really
and,
appreciate it.
Night,
Joe,
y'all.
we're grateful
Bye-bye.
for your
Bye-bye.
time and your knowledge. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Dave.
Thank you.
Night.
Well,
Brother.
Bye.